All right. First rule of the channel, we not talk about this channel. Second rule of this channel, this is not legal advice. So this is going to be after waivers for week 11 heading into week 12. This is going to be the proactive waiver wire show, getting ready for playoffs. So one of the first things I wanted to talk about today, I was looking at this when I was breaking everything down. Brock Purdy right now, he is listed as quarterback 8 overall. And again, your scoring settings and my scoring settings may be a little bit different, but in this case, like you're getting what you paid for. And again, this has to do with like low end ranges of outcomes and high end ranges of outcomes. And Brock Purdy's like right there in the middle. And sometimes we don't need to know how the sausage is made, because how he's getting it done is primarily not based off of like passing touchdowns. He has 8 interceptions to 13 touchdowns this year. It's based off the fact that he's been able to fall in the end zone 4 times within the last 5 weeks, with week 9 being the bye week. Now I bring this up because like Joe Burrow, on the other hand, like he's gonna fall in the category of league winner at probably the cost that you paid for me. I'm gonna guess like somewhere around like a 6th, 7th, maybe even a 5th round draft pick, something along that with Joe Burrow. He's quarterback 2, and sometimes you can't necessarily predict this, but he just gets on the streak of throwing touchdown passes, and then there's your league winner. And again, I don't even know how the sausage is made. The 1 week that he doesn't throw a touchdown, week 6, he falls into the end zone, and then that's how you get it done sometimes. Now I bring this up also with like Patrick Mahomes is know what you're paying for when you go after some of these guys out there in fantasy land. And like it's not just this year, it's not just getting ready for playoffs, it's getting ready for next year too. When you start breaking this stuff down, like this range of outcomes this season for Patrick Mahomes, this was predictive on a certain level, because like this is the low end of his range of outcomes. He has to throw like high touchdown passes. And again, this is not to knock Patrick Mahomes. This is not a real football channel. This is a fantasy football channel. Joe Burrow is hitting the high end of his range of outcomes. Patrick Mahomes is hitting the low end of his range of outcomes. Brock Purdy, one way, shape, or form, is right what you paid for with Brock Purdy. And, that's generally what I want to talk about. Like, looking at some of these guys, especially getting ready for playoffs, like, what is the possibility that a guy can give me a specific week relative to somebody else when I start building, my playoff lineup, and who am I going to be rolling during specific weeks. You remember the guys that can win me leagues are going to have like those massive spike weeks, and I want to be able to predict the possibility that they can give me that week to disproportionately give me an advantage over my opponent, based off who he's going to roll out against me. All right, so and I already talked about this. Moving on to the NFL schedule, we're looking at like week 12 right now. I already talked about this in Chasing the Dragon. Falcons, Bills, Bengals, Saints, Jets, and Jaguars are going to be on bye this week. And then next week, I have written down with my defenses right now. If the Chiefs are available, they're going to be rolling against the Raiders. If I can pull them up right now. No buys that we're looking at next week. I'm trying to hunt them down. Chiefs and Raiders is a Friday night game. So if the Chiefs get dropped, there'd be a guy that I'd be picking up and stashing for a week if they're available. Giants are going to be going up against the Cowboys. You could realistically go either way right now with some of the news that's coming out there with the Giants and the Cowboys. Probably not one of the defenses I want to be stashing if I don't necessarily have to. Colts and Patriots, again, you could go either way on this one right now. I probably would not be necessarily trying to guess that one. Washington and the Titans, and again, this is another one that you can go either way on. So like there's a lot of guys that you could be stashing for next week if you're in like your really competitive leagues, and guys are trying to stream specific defenses. Texans and the Jaguars, I already talked about this. Like Texans probably wouldn't be available, but if they are, like I'd be picking them up, going up against the Jaguars. Rams and Saints, this would be another one. Probably one of the better ones to be stashing right now would be the Rams and the Saints. Like there's no one to throw the football to, not named Taysom Hill, attached to the Saints right now, and the Rams would be one of the better streaming options. Bucks and Panthers right now, and then we're bringing this one right there. Again, like who's going to be the quarterback for the Panthers? Panthers don't look particularly good, even if it's Bryce Young. It still may be a pretty good matchup to be rolling them out there. And then Browns and Broncos could go either way on this one, but primarily I would be rolling the Broncos against the Browns if the Broncos get dropped out there in fantasy round. All right, so let's get into it with the 49ers to start things off, and I got to clear out the Texans. Running back wise, you're looking at CMC doing 94% of the snaps, 3 red zone carries, 1 red zone target. Yeah, there's not a lot left to talk about when it comes to the running backs in this one. Gary Endo was at 3% snaps. Jordan Mason was at 3% snaps. Jordan Mason did have the red zone carry in this game. Gary Endo was doing returns. They did re-sign Patrick Taylor to the practice squad. That would be like the running back that they cut. with CMC coming off the waiver wire. Debo was at 87% snaps in this game. 7 for 4 for 22, 2 red zone opportunities, 29 air yards. I think this is going to say relatively consistent. Remember, this was with Kittle being out with a hamstring this week. You're also looking at Ricky Pearsall. He was down to 58% snaps, 2 targets. I think this is going to stay like relatively consistent. Like being able to guess where the opportunities are going to go between these 3 wide receivers, and to finish things off, if I can find Jawan Jennings. 95% snaps, 11 for 10 for 91, and a touchdown. You're looking at two red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of those. 71 air yards. Like probably going to be somewhat inconsistent rest of the way with all of these guys. Again, like, trying to guess where the targets are going to go. The guy that I would want the most is Jawan Jennings. Ricky Pearsall is just going to be a dart throw. And then you're going to have to definitely be downgrading Debo to try and be able to predict what he's going to be able to give you going into the playoffs. Like if you're rolling Debo as like a flex wide receiver 3, I can understand that. If you're expecting some type of consistent 40-degree day floor, like I don't think you're necessarily going to get that coming out of that. Now, I did watch some of the Caleb Williams tape, and some of it's better. I mean, there's still going to be Caleb Williams problems. The problem is, or I shouldn't say the problem, he's still good at football. It's just a matter of like you have to be able to coach around him, and you also have to be able to coach through some of his flaws. Everybody's flawed coming out of college. And this week it did look better, and this was primarily a pretty good matchup going up against Green Bay. It's just like when you look at that schedule, Minnesota twice, San Francisco, Detroit twice, and then Seattle and the chip. Like I don't know how much you're going to be able to predict anything when it comes down to this. You're also looking at 57% snaps for Roschon in this, or not Roschon, DeAndre Swift. He did get the red zone opportunity, or one red zone opportunity, I should say. And then Roschon in this game, he was at 42% snaps, 4 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of those, so probably like desperation RB2 you could be looking at with Roschon. Part of the issue that I would say like with Roschon, even as a cuff, I don't know how much he's going to like get the full usage with Travis Homer still there. You might be able to get like full bell cow Roschon if you want to be like holding on to him for the rest of the way, especially if you're the Swift owner. And again, like I don't know how much you're going to be able to predict this offense one way or another, like 1 week sample size. DJ Moore in this one, he was at 94% snaps, 7 for 7 for 62. He did have 6 air yards, 1 red zone target. Keenan Allen was at 57 air yards on his 8 targets. I didn't log any red zone opportunities there. And then I did talk about this, like the one guy that I would feel good about rolling out there in that like low end wide receiver 2 range, wide receiver 3 range, or flex range would be Rome. 108 air yards, 1 red zone opportunity on his 10 targets, 82% snaps. Like some way, shape, or form, like he's going to be the guy that I would trust, because if I'm rolling him out there in a specific spot and he gives me a sub 40-degree day, I know that's what I'm getting. When it comes to like DJ Moore, I should have already pivoted around him to be able to realize that I got a bust this year, and then Keenan Allen was never going to win me any leagues. That's just the way I look at it. Cole Kmet, I'd be streaming only 97% snaps, 3 for 3 for 42 in this one. All right, Bengals, bring up like already talked about Joe Burrow. First and foremost, Chase Brown, I should say, 83% snaps, 22 for 86, 7 for 5 for 57 in this one. You're also looking at 5 red zone carries, 2 red zone targets on top of that. He didn't tug on any of those, if you're wondering. And then Khalil Herbert, I'm not really going to even talk about him right now. Only 5% snaps in this game. Jamar Chase, 149 air yards, 5 red zone targets. This would be one of the other ones I was looking at, like wide receiver 1 overall after like really being inconsistent. And again, just my process, I tend to take guys off there that have question marks. His contract situation, it looked like I was right to start the season week 1 and week 2, and then he just starts scoring touchdowns at will because of the massive amount of red zone opportunities that he's having, and then he's connecting with Joe Burrow. So that's just how it goes sometimes. T. Higgins back in this one, if I can find him down here. T. Higgins was back, 84% snaps, 13 for 9, 148, and a touchdown. He had 153 air yards and 3 red zone opportunities. That's how it gets it done. Like, this is the stuff that's like really hard to predict. Again, like chasing touchdowns is a good way to win your league. It's a good way to lose your league at the same time. When you just get those quarterbacks that are like, they're throwing in the end zone and they're connecting and they're getting the touchdown passes, and you have the guy that they're attached to, that's how you win your leagues. And there's really a difficult road to be able to predict these things. As I tell my co-managers every year, the top 5 rounds have about a 50-50 success rate, and there's only so much we can do to like predict those things ahead of time. Some of the other things are like good luck. Like, your story is as good as mine when it comes to trying to predict it, in the preseason. And then all we have to do is be able to roll out there and just be right or be wrong when it comes down to it. So that's what's going on right now with T. Higgins. Yosivas was all the way down to 68% snaps. If you're in deep enough leagues that you can still be holding on like Jermaine Burton, he's got like playoff league winner written all over him, but you're primarily going to be looking at like needing an injury for it to happen. So on 22% snaps, 4 for 1 for 8 in this game, 69 air yards, red zone opportunity. Yeah. So like if there's an injury and it works out, and then we're looking at like week 17 chip, if there's a massive spike week for Jermaine Burton because of an injury, yeah, that's well predictive at this point while I'm chasing some of these guys that are out there. Gesicki for the tight ends. Again, like trying to guess these things coming off that 71% snaps and 9 targets, 62% snaps, 2 targets in this game. And it was kind of turned into a little bit of a shootout at the end with the Chargers. Drew Sample, 60% snaps. Tanner Hudson, 11% snaps. Tanner McLaughlin didn't get activated. This is a Dynasty League thing, if you're wondering. They signed Cam Grandy to the active roster, which is like, really interesting. Again, he was only at 1% snaps in this game. Moving on to the Bills. Let's see. There's Dalton Kincaid still out. If you're wondering about that, James Cook on his 37% snaps. He scored twice. That's all that really matters. 2 red zone carries. He tugged on both of them. Also had a red zone target. If you're wondering, was talking about this, like it still looks like these guys, and this was kind of a knife fight with the Chiefs, if you're wondering. Ty Johnson, 45% snaps, 6 total opportunities. One of those was a red zone target. Yeah, you're getting into, when it comes to James Cook, you're going to definitely should be predicting that you're going to have he's going to absolutely break your heart week. And again, if he doesn't fall in the end zone twice on those 2 red zone carries, he definitely has a sub 40-degree day. So that's within his range of outcomes. You're also going to be looking at Ray Davis in this one. He was up to 21% snaps, 2 red zone carries also in this one. So like those 2 red zone opportunities could have gone to Ray Davis. Probably going to be some type of timeshare if Cook goes down between like Ray Davis and Ty Johnson going on. Khalil Shakur was at 71% snaps. This is with like Dalton Kincaid being out. This is also with Keon Coleman being out. 71% snaps, 12 for 8 for 70, 53 yak, 53 air, 2 red zone opportunities. Yeah, like you're probably, because of the offense, should be rolled out on a week-to-week basis, realizing that he's just a 40-degree day with a little bit of spike built into him. I'm not expecting a lot more out of him. And then again, you can see like Keon Coleman was rolled out in this game. Curtis Samuel was up to 60% snaps, 6 for 5 for 58 and a touchdown. I want to see, I didn't write anything else. 2 red zone opportunities. He did convert on one of those. I got to go to the Browns here so we can talk about Amari Cooper. 51% snaps, 3 for 2 for 55. And again, you're going to get the bye week, and then you're going to know week 13 what you have Amari Cooper. I imagine they're just going to heavily integrate him into the offense after that. And then he did have 71 air yards when he was out there. Dalton Kincaid, if you try to chase that, 84% snaps, 6 for 4 for 40, and 64 air yards. So it wasn't a bad roll. It just didn't work out. That's how fantasy works sometimes, if you're wondering. All right, moving on to the Broncos. And again, Bo Nix, he should have been in people's lineups. I actually rolled against them this week, and I kind of kicked myself because there's so many guys out there on the waiver wire that I was concerned with. The guy that I was rolling against in my main money league, he put in a bid. I forget who he put in a bid on. He missed on that bid, and then he just picked up Bo Nix. And I didn't have the ability to block because I was like, well, am I afraid of Bo Nix? Am I afraid of Jameis Winston? Who am I afraid of going out there and giving putting up this massive spike week? And that's how it rolls sometimes, 4 touchdown passes, if you're wondering about all that stuff when it comes to the Broncos. The other thing is with Audric Estime being a disappointment, like coming off of that 45% snaps, 14 carries, 23% snaps, 6 for 16, 3 for 3 for 9 in this one. Let's see. Same process that gives you Taysom Hill this week is going to give you Audric Estime. And we'll talk about Taysom Hill a little bit later. But again, trying to chase those things that look like there's a predictive pattern, and we can look at that stuff. Hey, it looked like there's a usage flop. It didn't happen. That's how it goes. Jaleel McLaughlin was at 15% snaps in this game, and then Javonte 52% snaps, 9 for 59 and a touchdown, 2 red zone carries. That's one of the ones he tugged on, and then another 5 for 4 for 28 also in this game. Your guess is as good as mine. If he got dropped, yeah, you're probably getting like some type of volume-based RB2. He's not going to give you massive spike upside. The offense is probably never going to be quote-unquote good when it comes to the Broncos. So if you want to roll him out there, like, yeah, I can understand that. If he's available, yeah, he's probably like some type of like volume-based RB2. Limited opportunities to score overall. Again, that's with the check down monster work, you're looking at 14 total opportunities in this one. And I don't know how many other times they're going to be scoring that many touchdowns on the season. I don't really care too much about the wide receivers. I mean, Courtland Sutton. Troy Franklin in this one, he had a red zone opportunity. Again, they scored 4 passing touchdowns in this game. I don't know how much you're going to get that. Marvin Mims also had a red zone opportunity that he was able to convert on in this game, if you're wondering, but only 23% snaps. Vele, he was able to do 68% snaps, 5 for 4 for 66. None of this stuff is necessarily going to win me a league. That's why I'm generally not interested in tracking all of this stuff. And there's Troy Franklin, 44% snaps, 2 for 2 for 15, and a touchdown. One of those is red zone opportunity. If you're wondering about that stuff, and I don't care about the Broncos tight ends. All right, moving on to the Browns. I don't have anything on them right now. Let's see. Going into their bye week. Is that what I wrote down? Yeah, they're going in or coming out of their bye week. So that was left in from last week. I just didn't clear it out, if you're wondering. Right now, Chubb was at 30% snaps in this game. Jerome Ford was at 56% snaps. Chubb right here, 11 for 50 when he's in the game, and then Jerome Ford is doing all the other stuff, the receiving stuff. So that's going to cut into the overall upside of this. Didn't write down any red zone opportunities. The big stuff with the Browns is going to be their receivers and being able to guess, like, if we get the highest neutral pace passing offense like we did last year with Joe Flacco, and that's what's going on right now with the Browns, just rolling out anybody is going to give you this ability to have this massive spike week and be able to predict that one way or another. So if you rolled out Cedric Tillman and he kind of burns you with this like 96% snaps, 8 for 3 for 47 in this one, you're looking at 119 air yards and a red zone target. So that's just going to happen sometimes. When those touchdowns go someplace else and you just don't get that guy, like, yeah, I'd be rolling him out again based off those metrics. Jerry Jeudy, 85% snaps, 11 for 6 for 142, and a touchdown in this one, 73 yak. That's how he was able to do that. That red zone opportunity, 11 targets, like, that's all good stuff. I'd be rolling him out again. In that, like, desperation wide receiver 2 range or below. Elijah Moore in this one, 73% snaps, 8 for 6 for 66 and a touchdown. In this one, again, 147 air yards. There's a possibility you're going to get a massive spike week out of him. And then David Njoku, and I have this written down, both of the red zone targets for the tight ends went to Atkins and not to Njoku, but you're looking at him putting up 86% snaps, 9 for 9 for 81 in this one. Only 26 air yards, 60 yak, but that's kind of what David Njoku can do. And they also can scheme him up into being other things. I wouldn't overthink it. If David Njoku's your guy, like, I just wouldn't overthink it too much. Like, unless you have Brock Bowers or something like that, I wouldn't be overthinking that one too much. And then, as it says right here, limited again on Tuesday, and we can bring up the schedule for week 12. If you're wondering, that's going to be a Thursday night game. So remember, like, don't trust Thursday night football if you're going to be chasing these guys for week 12. Bringing this one back up. All right. Moving on to the Bucks. I don't really have any news on them coming out of this, so, like, I'm just going to be looking it up as we go. The big one would be Mike Evans being out. Seen practicing on Monday. That was yesterday. That was after I put all my notes together, if you're wondering of all that stuff. And then nothing on Jalen McMillan right now going forward. Moving on to the Cardinals. They're on a bye week. I didn't have anything written down for them, so I can move on to the Chargers. Justin Herbert, again, this batch of games that he's going to be rolling through, he's already been able to get it done, like 6 for 65 on the ground, 2 touchdown passes, kind of in that shootout with the Bengals. And I imagine he's going to stay consistent for the rest of the season. Like this, there's a patch of games that are going to be able to get you into your playoffs. It's going to be week 16, week 17 that may be a little bit unpredictable when it comes to the Chargers. In this one, running back situation, if you're wondering, like, Gus Bus, only 16% snaps in this game overall Or scroll down to him. Did get 2 red zone carries. Hassan Hoskins was at 9% snaps. He did also have 2 red zone carries in this game to go along with this. And again, like this came down to basically like a Hail Mary at the end of the game. If you're wondering, when I talk about like these snap shares between these guys, and where some of the higher value opportunities are going, J.K. Dobbins, 73% snaps, 11 for 56, 2 touchdowns, 1 for 1 for 3 in this game. And I want to make sure he did tug on one of his red zone opportunities in the game. Lad McConkey, 73% snaps. He had 136 air yards in this one, like this blow up game that he had, 9 for 6 for 123. And I was watching some of the routes on this, like, yeah, he's really good. Internet man does not need to tell you that. Quentin Johnston, if you have him or he is available, this would be one of the guys that like I could definitely see having a predictive spike week coming. Obviously up between like week 12 and week 15. Whether or not he's able to do that week 16 or week 17, the metrics are saying, yeah, 8 targets. He tugged on one of those, 183 air yards. Yes, I would be chasing this. Is he going to be able to break your heart on any given week? So like I probably want to make sure I have the lineup around him if I'm going to be running him in a wide receiver 2 spot, if he's like my wide receiver 3 or my flex or something like that. Like I'm not overthinking it. I know that it's going to be there because the metrics have been there, like just based off of red zone opportunity and air yards when it comes down to him. Josh Palmer was at 76% snaps. So like he's going to be the odd man out, 4 for 2 for 23 overall with them. I did talk about this a little bit with Will Disley with Hayden Hurst. He was a healthy scratch, quote unquote. Will Disley was only at 57% snaps, 6 for 4 for 80 and a touchdown in this one. He did have 61 air yards. That was again primarily like a seam ball that Justin Herbert was able to hit on him for the touchdown. And then the other interesting thing, Tucker Fisk, added to the active roster, 36% snaps. Like he's like right now, like the blocking tight end from what I can see. And I can imagine you might get a little bit of consistency out of Will Disley, but outside of trying to, really chase a low end tight end that's not going to win you league. I don't know, if anything is going to be predictive on this. All right. Chiefs, and they lost to the Bills in this one. So take some of this with a grain of salt. Right now, with Isaiah Pacheco, we are expecting that he's going to get activated this week. All the rumors are coming out saying it's going to happen. So with Kareem Hunt, if he gets activated, I would not be surprised that Kareem Hunt gets one more week of this 60% snaps that he's been doing. And then Isaiah Pacheco may end up taking over this like Carson Steele role. 15% snaps. I can imagine that's going to stay somewhat consistent. So Kareem Hunt in this one, 3 red zone opportunities. He didn't score on any of those. Carson Steele had a red zone opportunity on the 15% snaps. So Samaje Perine had a red zone target on 20% snaps. CEH was still inactive. If you're wondering, DeAndre Hopkins was down to 47% snaps in this game. That kind of surprised me when I went and I looked that one up right here. 47% snaps, if you're wondering, on his 4 targets. Worthy, he's going to be another one of those guys if you're chasing and you're in the right league. He's going to have like a spike week. He did kind of have a spike week this week. 14 points, 5 for 4 for 61 and a touchdown. One of those was a red zone opportunity that he tugged on, 75 air yards. It's going to be there. Justin Watson was down to 56% stats. Juju was active, 36% snaps, red zone opportunity. One of the things that's going to make a little bit difficult for the Chiefs and their passing game, if I can find Mecole Hardman someplace here, right there. Mecole Hardman continues to get red zone opportunities. This is just how the offense is structured. Like they come out and they do like grab bag stuff in the red zone for fun. Mecole Hardman, 24% snaps. He had another red zone opportunity. Again, that's going to go someplace else than some of the other guys that you're rolling out there that are the Chiefs, if he continues to get that opportunity. So that means that's going to downgrade. Trying to roll out some type of a week when it comes to DeAndre Hopkins, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy. Primarily, I'd be chasing the air yards when it comes to Worthy if it remains somewhat consistent going into the playoffs. But anybody that's a Chief, I'm kind of skittish about in general with the way things are going. Justin Ross went back to the practice squad. That's more of a dynasty thing if you're wondering about that. So Travis Kelce in this game, he was at 80% snaps, 4 for 2 for 8 in this one. No red zone opportunities. The red zone opportunities went to Noah Gray, 76% snaps, 5 for 4 for 23. 2 red zone opportunities. He tugged on both. That's how it works. Hendershot, I believe, had a red zone target also, if I wrote this down correctly. All right, moving on to the Colts, and I did watch the tape on Anthony Richardson putting out a little bit of effort this week because I had the time. So it's the good, the bad, and the ugly when it comes to Anthony Richardson. There's some stuff that he looked better with. There's some other stuff that he missed on. I think this is going to be somewhat inconsistent the rest of the way. You're buying the rushing. That's primarily what you're going to be buying, and then hoping on any given week that you can get a spike week. So again, probably don't want to be seeing him like the Bo Nix week for me this week. I don't want to be seeing Anthony Richardson. I don't want to be rolling Anthony Richardson because I don't know how much I'm going to predict it. If I'm going to be rolling against like a Lamar Jackson or a Joe Burrow, I might have to get a little cute with who I'm rolling against them. Otherwise, like I might be taking the L regardless against them. So like I might as well roll the guy has like the massive upside when it comes down to it. When it comes to the wide receivers, and like one of the first things I'll talk about, like some of the stuff as a coach, when I see this, I can look at it and go, you don't know what you're doing. So Adonai Mitchell, he had a carry in this game, a red zone carry on top of that. He was at 17% snaps, 2 for 1 for 33, in this game, 6 air yards. Like they want to give him opportunities. They just can't figure out a way who they're going to take off the field in order to give him the opportunities. And a part of this is going to be because they have Anthony Richardson, they had Jonathan Taylor, and then they're like, hey, this guy's really talented. We got to get him on the field. And when we put him on the field, like everybody knows that he's going to get the football. So like, what are we going to do? And it just means that like, you're not very good at coaching because some of the stuff you got to do as a coach is you got to go like, that guy needs to come off the field. And primarily I'm going to guess the guy is going to be like Alec Pierce because Alec Pierce is like okay at football. And Mitchell may be special at football. So Alec Pierce, if he remains consistent for the rest of the year, you're looking at like that low end wide receiver 3 dart throw, 80% snaps, 71 air yards this week, 4 for 3 for 74. Josh Downs, and this is one of the things I said, like you don't know what you're doing as a coach. When you're looking at Adonai Mitchell doing 17% snaps, and then you're looking at Josh Downs doing 69% snaps. Josh Downs is probably, I would say, like your second best player behind Jonathan Taylor. And you just don't have him on the field enough. 5 for 5 for 84 and a touchdown in this one. One of those was a red zone opportunity that he tugged on, 72 air yards. And then finally, like Pittman that you paid all that money to, he's back this week, 87% snaps, 8 for 5 for 46, 116 air yards. Did have a red zone opportunity. So if you have Michael Pittman, yeah, you probably have to be rolling him out there, knowing that like there are some really large ranges of outcomes when it comes to any of these guys that are the Colts. And again, I don't care about the Colts tight ends. Now, I actually did sit down and watch the Redskins and the Eagles game on Thursday night because one of my co-managers invited me over to watch this game. Some of this is definitely coaching. Some of this is Jane Daniels when it comes to the inconsistency that's been going on. Now, I did see on Twitter that they talk about like the overall vertical portion of the offense, the quote unquote explosive portion of the offense, some of the design quarterback work and stuff like that, has kind of disappeared since the rib injury. I don't know how much of that is. There's also, you're looking at like B-Rob, who's been, in and out of the lineup. He was at 54% snaps, 2 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of them. Austin Eckler was at 52% snaps, red zone target in this one. And I bring this up because like, they generally controlled the first half of the game. They just couldn't score. And then the second half of the game was all Eagles. The thing, again, which makes me think that this is all like coaching related stuff, like 71% snaps for Scary Terry. And some of these, like you have to just go, hey, I'm going to throw it vertical because my best guy needs to go make a play. And that's not occurring. And that's either the coaches aren't calling the plays to do that, or your player isn't, in this case, like Jane Daniels, isn't just throwing that up there. Because again, if they're going to be doing quote unquote double coverage down the field, that means that you're playing like 10 on 9 underneath. And you need to be able to take advantage of that one way, shape, or form down the field. Noah Brown was at 77% snaps. Don't care. Zach Ertz in this one. This would be another one like he's low end, tight end one. Streamer range, 80% snaps, 7 for 6 for 47, and a touchdown. And then he also had a 2-point conversion. So again, tight ends can't break your heart. Ben Sinnott, dynasty stuff, down to 9% snaps in this game. All right. Moving on to the Cowboys. So first and foremost, Cooper Rush was 55 or 32 of 55, 354, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. They only scored 10 points. That's all you need to know. And then it was kind of a football game from what I could see of the box score until like later in the game, and then the Texans really like hung it on them later. I can bring this up right now so I can talk about this. So 34-10 was the final. And you can see like at halftime, it was 17-10, and then 20-10 going into the fourth quarter, and then 2 fourth quarter touchdowns when it comes to the Texans to really put the game away. So it was a little bit closer than the score would indicate. If you're wondering, they did come out and say he's going to remain the starter. They also said that Trey Lance is going to quote unquote get a package that's going to go on out there. The internet rumors are basically they're going to let Cooper Rush see if he can somewhat salvage the season, and then turn the keys over to Trey Lance. Once Cooper Rush like removes them from playoff eligibility, if you're wondering about that. So, but Trey Lance would be another one like Anthony Richardson that does have the cheat code, the league winning upside. If you're in one of those leagues that are deep enough that you have to be chasing those guys, and the bigger thing is if you're getting ready for your playoffs, I would want him on the bottom of my bench. Not that I have any plans to use him other than like someone that's going to be able to roll a guy out there that can put up like 100 yards rushing, a couple rushing touchdowns, and then give all the passing touchdowns on top of that. Like, again, if you are in deep enough leagues and you're getting ready to transition over that like playoff roster construction. All right, running back situation, you're looking at 31% snaps for Zeke, 49% Rico Dowdle. Nothing that I really care about. There's no red zone opportunities or anything like that. Rico Dowdle would be the one, like you're looking at 15 total opportunities, 5 targets to go along with him. Wasn't very consistent. Other stuff, Brandon Cooks is looking like he's getting ready to come off of IR that I could see. Jalen Tolbert with a healthy scratch. Ryan Flanoy, the rookie, right here. If you're wondering, like Jalen Brooks was the healthy scratch for Ryan Flanoy. They gave 65% snaps to, again, trying to see what they have that's out there. And Jonathan Mingo was at 29% snaps coming over from the Panthers. 4 targets, did have a red zone opportunity. So again, there's a possibility that you're going to get a Jonathan Mingo uptick. But, and here's the but on that one, even if he's able to magically take over the wide receiver 2 role in the offense, I can just bring him up so you could stare at him relative to me talking. Even if he's able to take over the wide receiver 2 role when it comes to like snap share, when it comes to the Cowboys, he's going to be behind CeeDee Lamb. He's also probably going to be behind like whoever the tight end is between like, let's just say Jake Ferguson. So like, I don't think he's going to necessarily be outside, or he's ever going to move outside of wide receiver 3 dart throw range, if you're wondering about all that stuff. Now, injury rise right now for the Cowboys. Jake Ferguson, concussion, and it says like hard pressed to play like week 12 on that one. Did like Luke Schoonmaker from the overall box score. The snap share, I don't like 53% snaps. 10 for 6 for 56 in this one. 86 air yards. Again, that's like something to really like going forward in this offense. Part of the reason why I don't like this is Brevin Spanford, the big blocker out of Minnesota, 49% snaps, 5 for 4 for 42. Like, I don't know if you can necessarily trust it as a 1-week rental. He's going to be in that range when I like talking about like Schoonmaker. He's going to be in that range of like dart throws. Maybe you can get this massive spike week. There are other things that are saying like, again, like Audric Estime, that you're chasing something that may not be there to quote, your Don Quixotes, like you're chasing that windmill when it comes down to Luke Schoonmaker. All right. Moving on to the Dolphins. Talked a little bit about this in Chasing the Dragon. So Devin Singletary, or Devin A-Chain, 62% snaps, 17 for 73 and a touchdown, 4 for 4 for 32. That's all good stuff. 5 red zone opportunities, 1 red zone target. Mostert was down to 5 or 15% snaps, 3 for -2 in this game, 3 red zone carries, and this kind of did go down to the end. This was a little bit closer game than it would indicate. But Jalen Wright would be the guy to stash as that lottery ticket. 26% snaps, 5 for 4, 1 for 1 for 2. Also had a red zone opportunity. Tyreek Hill had 3 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of them. From a dynasty perspective, and I can bring this up. So you're looking at OBJ at 24% snaps, 2 or 4 targets. 2 of those were red zone targets. And then Malik Washington, his snap share continues to go up. You're primarily going to be guessing from a dynasty standpoint that he's going to step in and eventually be the number 2 behind Waddle when Tyreek Hill, Father Time is undefeated. He was at up to 40% snaps, 3 for 3 for 11 in this one. He also had 1 carry for 7 yards. And then one of his targets was a red zone target in this one. All right. I also talked about Jonnu Smith in Chasing the Dragon. Again, this was kind of a closer game. 81% snaps, 8 for 6 for 101, 2 touchdowns. Only 41 air, 59 of that was yak. Like, so, muted expectations that he's going to be able to take another 57 yarder primarily through yak instead of through air yards on that one, if you're wondering. But again, chasing the snap share, I like chasing the snap share, and then chasing the overall opportunities is probably not a bad thing attached to what projects to be like, an okay type good offense. All right, take a sip of water. I actually don't have a lot to say about the Eagles this week, if you're wondering about that. The biggest thing coming out of all this is it was a Dallas Goedert week, which meant it wasn't a Devontae Smith week. And then AJ Brown is like, okay, give you a 40-degree day. That's about all I got when it comes to the Eagles. Looking at all this stuff like Barkley's a league winner, I shouldn't have to tell you that. Not a very good week when it comes to the Falcons. They got blown out by the Broncos this week. Bijan was at 71% snaps. Tyler Algier was all the way down to 7% snaps. He did have a target. Chase McClellan. This is more of a dynasty thing with the expectation he might eventually take over for Tyler Algier. If you have like deep enough leagues that you're planning this far ahead, he was up to 22% snaps in the blowout, 8 for 15 late. I don't have a lot to say. Darnell Mooney popped up with a hamstring. And again, yesterday it says not considered serious, whatever that means. Kyle Pitts was at 75% snaps. Don't have much else to say about that. All right, moving on to the Giants. We got a lot of news when it comes to the Giants. For right now, Daniel Jones is going to be the third string quarterback for the Giants. I don't necessarily think this is going to like upgrade or downgrade anything when it comes to some of the stuff going on with the Giants. Tommy DeVito is in line to be the starter this week. If you are in deep enough leagues, and we're talking like super flex leagues, like, yeah, he is streamable. If you look at like last year, because of what he can do theoretically, those ranges of outcomes, can have the nimbly bimbly, and did have 3 touchdown passes in week 11 against the Redskins last year, and again week 14, 1 passing touchdowns, 71 rushing yards on top of that. Like, yeah, he is a streamer. Unfortunately, if you can matchup shop him. I imagine some of this is going to be like full tank mode when it comes to the Giants. Like, Drew Lock may slightly give them a better opportunity to win games than DeVito, and they're just like, hey, who cares at that point, if you're wondering. Don't know if this actually upgrades or downgrades anybody. And then if you have the ability to be like, even in like closer to 10-man leagues, if you have the ability to be stashing your Theo Johnsons coming out of the bye weeks, like, the possibility you're going to get like the number 2 in an offense coming out of the bye week, if you're wondering about that stuff. Jaguars, I have written down no red zone opportunities for the entire team this week that I could find on Fantasy Pros. Another sip of water. Trevor Lawrence was out with his shoulder. That means we got another week of Mac Jones. Let's see. Travis Etienne was up to 75% snaps. This was an absolute blowout when it comes to the Lions game. If you're living under a rock, Tank Bigsby with an ankle. Brian Thomas Jr. He's at 94% snaps, 7 for 5 for 87 air yards. Like, one of them was called back late in the game. He could have had a slightly better game. It was reviewed and taken away on that one. Gabe Davis is out for the year with a knee meniscus tear. That means like Parker Washington is going to be in dart throw range right now. I imagine, if you're wondering, he's at 58% snaps, 3 for 1 for 10 in this game. They've run a couple other guys. They ran Austin Trammell at one point, 61% snaps with the injuries that were down. Devin Duvernay, like, he's one of the better special teams player. He was up to 29% snaps in this one. And then you also have the possibility that you're going to get like more Tim Jones sightings out there, like to be able to take over for that Gabe Davis role in the offense at Big X that Parker Washington likely is not going to be playing in the offense, if you're wondering about that. The other guys like Evan Ingram was at 75% snaps. Brenton Staves was at 50% snaps. I would not be surprised if they try and live in 2 tight ends. That may be the best personnel configuration that they can be in for the rest of the year between these 2 guys. And again, like, I think you may get an upgrade when it comes to Evan Ingram. He also may be limited when it comes to being like good at football versus being a good athlete. Not a real football channel when it comes to the Jets. If you're wondering, I did watch some of this stuff and I have no idea what's going on. I believe they fired their GM today. Again, like, not a real football channel if you want to be looking at that stuff. Yeah, fires the GM today. So whatever's going on, like, this is not good. I shouldn't have to tell you that. when it comes to a fantasy perspective. So I didn't write like hardly anything down. How bad are they? You're looking at 67 air yards for Garrett Wilson. Devontae Adams was at 18 air yards. Like he got some of what he got done with Yak. If I could bring him up, I gotta go to the Raiders to bring up him. Devontae Adams. So this 94% snap, 7 for 6 for 72. 56 of that was Yak. That they're not even pushing the ball vertically down the field. And what makes this interesting is you should have been seeing this uptick when it comes to Breece Hall. If they're taking away these guys vertically down the field, this should have been translating to Breece Hall getting the check down monster stuff and letting him like break a tackle and go do stuff. That hasn't really been happening until this week when they threw the game away because of bad coaching. 7 for 7 for 7 or for 43 and a touchdown to go along with 16 for 78 and a touchdown on 84% snaps in this one. All right, moving on to the Lions, and the Lions are like really good at football. Again, absolute blowout. Is 52-6, I believe, overall in this one. Bring this one back up if you're wondering. And the reason why I bring this up is because you're going to get like skewed snaps when it comes to the players, and the Lions do tend to screw around in their games when they're blowing some of the teams out. So 42% snaps for Gibbs, 39% snaps to Montgomery. You got Craig Reynolds and Sione Vaki were in the game. The Sun God, and again, this was with Laporta out, 11 for 11, 161, 2 touchdowns, red zone target with one of those things, so take that with a grain of salt. Then also in the blowout with Laporta out, you got Jameson Williams doing 65% snaps, 6 for 4 for 124, and a touchdown on top of that. So like, I'm just rolling out all my Lions, realizing that like if they get into a knife fight, like I may not get my spike week, but they're so good that like not rolling out Lions shares at this point, and this is the same thing as like the Ravens, not rolling out good offenses means that I'm also not going to be getting my spike week that goes along with it, because they can be like highly volatile in a good way. Brock Wright, and again like chasing opportunity, and I did talk about this in like chasing or in the grift. With Laporta out, like there's a possibility that he's just going to catch a red zone target. He caught a touchdown red zone target. So if you rolled him out there, you got your 7 points in your half PPR leagues. All right, moving on to the Packers. So some of the interesting stuff in this one, and this was kind of a knife fight with the Bears. Josh Jacobs, 80% snaps, 18 for 76, a touchdown, 5 for 4 for 58 in this one. And all red zone opportunities went to him, and he tugged on that one. Emmanuel Wilson was down to 7% snaps, so like probably not be cuffing him anymore. And then you could also talk about like Chris Brooks. He was up to 22% snaps. And remember, this was a little bit of a knife fight with these two guys. So like I don't know if it's really worth cuffing at this point when it comes to your Josh Jacobs shares between what goes on with the snap share on these guys. Marshawn Lloyd, he came off the IR, and it looks like he's going to go right back on the IR with the appendicitis. Returns from IR. He had to come off, and I was reading they're going to put him right back on it. If you're wondering about that, Romeo Doubs was at 78% snaps, 2 for 1 for 17. Jordan Reed, and this would be another one like you're just chasing you're chasing pieces attached to a good offense that can be very volatile. Again, 57% snaps, 2 for 2 for 23, and a touchdown in this one. That was a red zone opportunity that he tugged on. And then Christian Watson, being able to guess on some of these guys like, wide receiver 3, boom bust wide receiver 3. He lands this week 4 for 4 for 150, 104 air yards. Dontavian Wicks was down 34% snaps or 35% snaps, and Melton was down to 11% snaps. Sip of water. Tucker Kraft was at 93% snaps. He only had 1 target in the game, and it was a red zone target. So, like, if you're worried that he broke your heart because of this, like, goose egg that he put up, like, it was really close to, like, basically doing what Brock Wright did for the Lions. So I wouldn't overthink that. All right, moving on to the Panthers. Right now, we're looking at, like, Bryce Young is going to remain the starter for the Panthers. Right now, Miles Sanders, unlikely to play week 12. We're also tracking that this is going to be the week where Jonathan Brooks is going to be suiting up and playing. I imagine he's going to do that like 20 to 30% snap range that Miles Sanders was doing, and this would leave like Chuba Hubbard as like a very high-end running back 2, if not a low-end running back 1, just basically because he's attached to not a good offense. The other thing to be talking about when it comes to the Panthers is Adam Thielen is expected to play. So normally I would say like, hey, you could speculate on Leggett and Jalen Colker as being wide receiver 3s. Now, if Adam Thielen comes back in the offense, I don't know if you can predict anybody that's not named Chuba Hubbard, because of the fact that like Leggett's probably going to play the Z. Jalen Colker would play like the big slot. That's also what Adam Thielen would probably also play, that power slot in the offense. So the guy that's probably going to play 80, 90% of the snaps is going to be David Moore, even though he wouldn't necessarily be fantasy relevant outside of like deep dart throw range. So like trying to guess on overall usage with these guys, like I don't know what the point of taking Jalen Colker off the field at this point is going to be, other than like Adam Thielen may be a better pro than Jalen Colker is, and you're trying really not to break Bryce Young. So if you're going to be guessing on anybody going forward in snap shares, this, that, and the other, like where the opportunities are going to go, if Adam Thielen gets activated, I wouldn't be guessing on anybody. And that would include guessing if you're going to get a certain amount of consistency out of Jatavion Sanders, that was trending in the right direction towards like having a certain amount of fantasy viability. If Thielen comes back, I don't know if you can even guarantee the targets going to him if he remains a starter coming out of the bye week. All right. Patriots. Moving on. Let's see. Drake May. Another one of those fantasy, somewhat relevant weeks. Going up against the Rams this week. Ramondre Stevenson. 76% snaps, 20 for 73, 4 for 4 for 16, fumbled not lost, 7 red zone opportunities. So not a good offense, but if guys are getting this much red zone opportunity, I wouldn't overthink it, even if you think that like they have a possibility of giving you a sub 40-degree day. They did release Tyron Thornton. I think he got picked up by the Chiefs, the wide receiver. Pop Douglas, he was at 57% snaps, 58 air yards in this one. So like the whole thing of like, do you want that guy who's going to give you that 40-degree day with a limited amount of spike week versus the guy who's going to give you like all spike week? 96% snaps, 6 for 4 for 33 for Keyshawn Butte. You're also looking at 69 air yards when it comes down to him. Polk was at 41% snaps. I talked about Kendrick Bourne in Chasing the Dragon, so only 47% snaps in this one. I could see the snap share going up. That doesn't necessarily mean that the opportunities are going to go up, but I can see the snap share going up. I could also see staying somewhat consistent. They have other guys that they probably should be looking at in the offense. We also saw Javon Baker. He's at like relatively consistent, like 7% snaps. They're probably going to give him a week by the end of the season. You're also looking at KJ Osborne, the free agent signing from Minnesota. He was a healthy scratch in this one, so the Patriots are just trying to figure out what they have right now. Hunter Henry, if you're going to be chasing this one when it comes to like some of the bye weeks that are out there, he was at 88% snaps, 9 for 6 for 63, 2 red zone opportunities. That's going to happen. Just comes down to when and if you could trust the offense. All right, Raiders. I have bye week written down. That's not right. So Gardner Minshew right now, he should be staying the starting quarterback when it comes to the Raiders going forward, if you're wondering. I did talk about this a little bit in Chasing the Dragon. You're looking at Zamir White. He left the game with a quad. And then Alexander Madison, he left the game with an ankle. This is going to be monitoring it, trying to guess who the running back's going to be. If they go like full bell cow of Amir Abdullah, 31-year-old pass blocker, special teams guy. My guess, if you have the ability to go like be a little bit cute, would be pick up Dylan Labe and see if they give him like pretty much like 50 to 60% of the work this week as the receiving guy. And again, like receiving work has a little bit more value than rushing work when it comes down to that. He may not get like the higher value stuff outside of the receiving work if you're going to be chasing that. They still might get the red zone opportunities to Amir Abdullah if Madison and Zamir White can't go. And then there's also the possibility that they're going to go like with Tyreek McAllister. He got some work earlier in the season. When it comes to the actual wide receivers, you're looking at Jacoby Myers at 88% snaps. He did have a red zone target. Trey Tucker and DJ Turner had red zone targets. The Michael Mayer was back. This is more of a dynasty thing. He did have 3 targets in this game. 2 of those were red zone targets. In this one, 52% snaps, and then Brock Bowers, 95% snaps, 16 for 13, 126, and a touchdown again, like unicorn. I do have this written down when it comes to his stats: 64 air yards, 78 yak. He's just a good football player. Moving on to the Rams. So I did talk about this in Chasing the Dragon. with Kyron Williams. He was down to 81% snaps, 15 for 86 in this game. You're looking at Blake Corum, 19% snaps. That's up. That's up a lot. 5 for 21, 1 for 1 for 7 this game. And then the red zone carry went to Blake Corum. It didn't go to Kyron Williams. So I'm not saying that you're going to get any type of like usage flop or anything going forward. They are definitely trying to get Blake Corum in the offense. There was no Ronnie Rivers. If you're a deep enough league that you can stash with that lottery ticket going forward, it does appear that Corum is the guy. There's still a possibility that you're going to get some type of like 50-50 split between the two of them by the end of the year. Another sip of water. When it comes to the wide receivers for the Rams, and I have a lot of notes written down, but I don't know how relevant they're going to be to a lot of guys. So Demarcus Robinson was at 75% snaps. Jordan Whittington was 10% snaps. He was doing return stuff. Tutu was at 13%. Tyler Johnston was down at 13% snaps. Again, this is all stuff telling me that like they don't know what they're doing. Puka Nacua, 75% snaps, 9 for 7 for 123 and a touchdown. That was a red zone opportunity. 113 air, 46 yak. Yeah, he's good at football. I don't need to tell you that. You should be rolling these guys out there. Cooper Kupp in this one. 3 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of them. 76 air, 64 yak. They're really good at football. Probably what hurts the Rams the most is they don't have that like vertical threat down the field to let Cooper Kupp and Puka do their thing. Either that big X or like that burner. That would kind of be what Tutu would be. But Demarcus Robinson isn't going to be that guy. The other thing with the tight ends, and I did see there was a little bit of news on Tyler Higbee, still weeks out on that one. Davis Allen, he remained the starter. He didn't get any opportunity, 65% snaps. Colby Parkinson was able to score on a red zone opportunity. He was down to 37% snaps. And then Hunter Long was at like 35% snaps. Little odd usage when it comes to the Rams. Like they're primarily a 3 wide receiver team. And, they've been screwing around with their tight ends. Don't know how much that's going to do anything. All right, when it comes to the Ravens in their game, Derrick Henry's at 49% snaps, 2 red zone opportunities. He tugged on one of them. You're looking at Justice Hill at 49% snaps. Keaton Mitchell remained consistent at 3% snaps in this game. Return duties, if you're wondering about that stuff. Again, trying to chase some of these guys, unless you have the ability to go with guys that are going to give you that rock 40-degree day, and that's how you want to build your lineup. You're generally going to be like realizing that you're moving or rolling some of these guys out there with like high volatility attached to an offense that can score a lot of points on any given week. It was a Zay Flowers week, 84% snaps, 6 for 2 for 39 and a touchdown. And I do have written down that like 84 air yards. So like that's going to be the guy pretty much. And then Rashad Bateman was at 80% snaps in this one. 5 for 2 for 30. And then Deontay Johnson, I'm not even going to bring him up. 18% snaps, 2 targets in this game. Tylan Wallace was down to 15% snaps. Nelson Aguilar was at 39% snaps. With Isaiah likely back this week for the Ravens, Mark Andrews is back down to like normally what we can kind of guess at 61% snaps. 3 for 2 for 22 in this one. And then likely being back, he was at 49% snaps, 5 for 4 for 75. He did have a fumble lost also, if you're wondering about that. All right, moving on to the Saints. So waiting for Kendre Miller to come off of IR, you're getting like pretty much like full bell cow Alvin Kamara, with the exception of Taysom Hill. So he's at 73% snaps, 4 red zone opportunities. Jamal Williams was still out with a groin. Jordan Mims was at 18% snaps in this one. Chris Olave still on IR with that concussion. Cedric Wilson was down to 17% snaps. Buzz Means is still on IR. Mason Tipton was a healthy scratch. Now we could talk about the rest of the wide receivers. This is why just roll out Taysom Hill again, if you're wondering about that. Kevin Austin was at 68% snaps. MVS, I got to go over to here. He was at 65% snaps, 4 for 2 for 87 in this one. 93 air on those 4 targets. That's how he was able to get home this week. Dante Pettis was at 12% snaps. So again, like I don't know who the wide receivers are going to be that like are going to be scary in any way, shape, or form. They're going to be like running the football a lot or designing plays for like their 2 biggest weapons, which are going to be like Kamara and Taysom Hill. Juwan Johnson was at 57% snaps. Foster Moreau was at 85% snaps. So we could go back and pull up our Taysom Hill shares. So you're looking at 19 total opportunities, 4 red zone opportunities in and of themselves, 2 carries, two targets in this one. So like again, I'm not overthinking this. I'm just rolling him out. I'm rolling him out until the wheels come off when it comes to Taysom Hill and those 19 total opportunities that I can put into a tight end position in most of your leagues. Not only that, you're going to get your red zone opportunities. Yeah, like that massive spike week, it was predictive. It landed on that one. Moving on to Seahawks, and I did want to talk about where's he at? Right here. JSN, 83% snaps, 11 for 10 for 110. Like some of this remained relatively consistent in this one. 103 air yards. DK Metcalf, he was back, only 48 air yards in this one. And then Noah Fant, he was out with a groin. AJ Barner is going to remain, as long as Noah Fant is out, AJ Barner is going to remain as that like low end streamer just because of the snap share that he had going on in this one. Moving on to Steelers, and this was kind of like an ugly game between them and the Ravens. So Najee, he was at 58% snaps, 18 for 63, not very efficient. 5 for 4 for 30 in this one, but he had all the 4 red zone opportunities. Jalen Warren was only at 33% snaps. George Pickens, he was 88% snaps, 12 for 8 for 89, 129 air yards, 2 red zone opportunities. He does 12 for 8 for 89. So like again, like the metrics are saying as long as Rush is in there, like he's going to be flirting with wide receiver 1 range, even though he's attached to a bad offense. Mike Williams was only at 32% snaps coming over from the Jets second week. No targets for him. Let's see. I don't really care about the tight ends when it comes to the Steelers. I think Muth had more red zone opportunities this week. Texans on Monday night. And I bring up this real quick when I talk about like CJ Stroud relative to your Brock Purdy and your Joe Burrows and your Patrick Mahomes, and like trying to guess on like the high end ranges of outcomes for these guys. And right now, like, not a real football channel. Don't care anything about that. Just like being able to predict like the statistical ranges of outcomes on guys and like what they need to do to be like league winners relative to their price. What are the chances they're going to be able to do that? CJ Stroud, like right now, like you're looking at 12 touchdowns and 7 interceptions right now coming out of this week, only threw an interception. Again, this isn't me talking about like how good or bad he is. Like he was going to have to throw he was going to have to be this year's Joe Burrow for it to matter. And he's not just this year's Joe Burrow. So that's just how it goes sometimes. And remember, they're winning games and it doesn't really matter because they don't care about your fantasy lineup. The Bengals are losing games. Joe Burrow may win the MVP statistically, and his team may not make the playoffs if you're wondering about all that stuff. So this was a sort of ended up being a blowout of the Cowboys this week. So Joe Mixon, so this is one of the interesting things that I saw. He had season high in snap share in this game, 81% snaps, 9 red zone carries. He tugged on 2 of those. He also had 2 red zone targets. Yeah, like this is good stuff when it comes down to it. If you're wondering why everything else is going to be skewed, they could just run the football over the Cowboys. Nico, first game back from the hamstring, only 47% snaps, 7 targets. One of those was a red zone target. Tank Dell in this one, he was at 64% snaps, 7 targets, 67 air yards to Nico's 59 air yards. He did have a red zone carry. So again, like trying to guess on these guys, like you're still going to be able to put John Mechie in that wide receiver 3 dart throw range at his 61% snaps. He did also have a red zone opportunity in this game. He didn't cash in on. Bobby Trees is at 31% snaps. Dalton Schultz is going to be there, like right on the edge of tight end 1 and streamability. 75% snaps, red zone, or 7 red zone, or excuse me, 75% snaps, 7 targets. One of those was a red zone target. And then Cade Stover, this is probably a little bit more from a dynasty thing. Cade Stover, 45% snaps, 2 for 2 for 15. He also had a red zone opportunity. He would be the guy that I could definitely see down the line being the number 2 in the offense from a dynasty perspective behind Nico. Once Dalton Schultz moves on, and then I don't necessarily think like Tank Dell or Mechie or anybody else is going to ever be a true number 2. That's why we can start talking about like him being the number 2 in the offense, if you're wondering. All right, Titans. We can talk a little bit about this if you're in deep enough leagues, like your 2 quarterback leagues or something like that. Like Will Levis is getting really close to being like streamable. He is streamable. It just becomes like, what are the chances we're gonna get like some type of predictive spike week? The Nimbly Bimbly, like 5 for 41 week 10, 7 for 18. And again, I primarily care about like the rushing opportunity when it comes down to that. It has to be like, can I get a certain amount of these two things to go together and get a spike week? It's gonna happen. I just don't know how predictive it's going to be going forward in this one. Right now, you're looking at Tajay Spears being out with a concussion. So you're going to get a week of full bell cow Tony Pollard. And then Calvin Ridley, you're looking at a 51-yarder was called back by a penalty. He had 152 air yards, so I'm just going to keep rolling him out. I'm not going to overthink it. And then Nick Westbrook-Akine, he was at 85% snap, 6 for 2 for 117 and a touchdown. 83 air yards. So if you're in deep enough leagues that you can keep rolling out that wide range of outcomes when it comes to him, I imagine that you're going to do something like week 10, 100% snaps, 3 for 3 for 31. You're also going to have the ability for him to give you a 40-degree day if you're in deep enough leagues that you got to be chasing all that stuff. And then finally, when it comes to the Vikings, and I was thinking about this before I went live, first and foremost, with Cam Akers, 37% snaps, 12 opportunities, 1 red zone carry, 1 red zone target he tugged on. He should have already been picked up. If you've been listening to this channel, he should have already been picked up. That's why I didn't talk about him and chasing the dragon. He should have already been picked up with the uptick in the backfield and how Ty Chandler was phased out. He's not available in either of my leagues when it comes to like the more competitive league or the less competitive league. Cam Akers was already snatched up. So Aaron Jones was down to 53% snaps, 16 total opportunities, 1 red zone carry. Just downgrade him relative to the cost you spent on him. And a couple other things I didn't look at. I want to check this. 44% snaps, Jalen Naylor. And then TJ Hawkinson remained consistent at 48% snaps in this game. 3 for 2 for 13 if you rolled him out instead of chasing Taysom Hill. And then Josh Oliver, he was at 56% snaps. He's out with an ankle right now, and I don't know how that's going to end up. I don't know if they're actually going to give the uptick to Hawk when it comes to overall snap share, or they're going to go with like Munt or something else. So anyway, that's about what I got for after waivers this week, and I'll see you guys on Friday with the Griff.